Thank you. When Pat Hildebrand called my wife, and I was at the Houston Rodeo, and she called down there and gave me the message, my wife did, and she told me to sit down, and first thing that came to my mind, I was kind of in shock. I felt really honored that they would consider me for the Hall. And after that, I felt proud, to be in there with my dad and all the people that I idolized, through the years of growing up and through the sport of rodeo. And it was funny, the first thing that came to my mind after I got through that was the very first junior rodeo that I went to. And I was entered in five timed events, and I don't even recall which ones they were. And the thing that I remember about it the most was the announcer, the lady that was up there. She says, "Next up, John W. Jones Jr." And then she'd go, "No time for John W. Jones Jr." And she did that 5 times, and that just kind of sunk in my head. And it's funny how it's made a full turn since then and stuff. There's 2 things that kind of pushed me towards the timed event when I was real little, about 6 years old. A friend of my dad's came by. His name was Leon Adams, and he had those white Bramer bulls with the big golden knobs on their horns and stuff, and I was pretty fascinated with that. And for some reason, he was in the contract business of contract personnel who did the acts during the rodeo, and he rode these Bramer bulls and stuff. And for some reason, I thought he was a bullfighter. And after he had left, he was there for a week or so, and after he'd left, I was just fascinated with him, and I wanted to change my name for a couple of weeks to Leon Adams. I just wanted to be Leon Adams, and I wanted to be a bullfighter. So I went around there for a few weeks, and a few of my friends came over, and I decided I'd show them how tough I was and that I was going to be a bullfighter someday. And my dad had this steer that had got hurt, and he had him back behind the barn, and I took all my friends back there and had my little towel with me, and I strolled out there and I stuck it out and went, "Toro, Toro, Toro." And this steer turned around and came running right at me. And about that time, it didn't look like a real good situation, so I turned around and started running, and I chucked the towel, and I was screaming, "I don't want to be Leon Adams anymore!" Boom! And as he hit me going out the fence. And that's when I decided I didn't want to be a bullfighter anymore. So I decided I thought I'd become a bull rider if I couldn't fight him. And it didn't take me very long to see how small my heart was. When the one summer that I stayed at Monty and Pat Roberts' place, and he had a feedlot down there where he would buck all these steers, and when they buck, he'd keep in a certain pen down there, and his son Marty would ride with us, and didn't take very long where we were hiding in the barn when it was time to go ride these steers and stuff, and so we ended up kind of getting out of it. But the only thing I could never figure was that Marty must not have been able to play hide and seek very good, because after I left, his dad found him quite a few times, and he became a pretty darn good bull rider. I get to stand up here today and take all the credit, or a lot of it, and there's a lot of people that helped me out down the road. And when I first started out, there's guys like Art Cochran, who spent many hours in a practice pen helping me drilling the fundamentals to us, letting us ride his horse from the very beginning. Those kind of things make for a solid foundation. Guys like Jack Roddy that I spent some summers with, who helped me with my confidence. And everybody knows that rodeo has a lot to do with the mental game, and he taught me a lot about that. Jimmy Rodriguez Jr., who helped me a lot with my scorn and roping. I credit him big time with that. When I was about pretty young, I got bucked off a horse, and I wanted nothing to do with him for quite some time. I'd rather take a beating than ride one. And my dad asked me to ride his horses, and I really didn't care to, but I would. And they had to wonder if I ever would rodeo or even try. They always supplied the opportunity for me. If I wanted to do it, that was fine, and they knew that if they pushed me at that point, that I'd probably go further away from it. So they were pretty smart in the sense that they always supplied the opportunity, and they let me decide that I wanted to do it, because that's what any rodeo athlete, you have to want to do it before you can become or get to where you want to go. My mom and dad found horses for me when I was little, and believe me, nowadays I know that it's hard to find those kind of horses for your kids, being that I'm at that stage right now. So that took a lot of effort. That I had steers there for me to practice with, and My mom, when I was on the road, took care of my books. My sister gave me moral support. It was just kind of a family effort. And, I said this one time when I was in high school, and I caught a lot of flack for it, but I feel I had the advantage of working with the best, and that was my dad. He helped me tremendously. He had a great technique. He had great mental confidence, and he said not to worry about things that happened. Go on, that one's over, learn from that experience, and go to the next ones. Also, I'd like, when you first start out, there's always a guide, somebody that's always there to practice with. Oh, I love this train. It's great. It's always nice to have somebody that you start out with, and Tom Switzer was that guy that had as much try as anybody I've ever known. He was always there to when it was time to practice, and we pushed each other, and I think without his help and him and I matching or pushing each other and running millions and millions of steers, it seems like, through the years, that I don't think that, I'd probably be standing up here without his help. My rookie year, I was fortunate enough to travel with a guy by the name of Chris Libert, who was an all-around champion, I believe, in '82. He showed me the ropes, how to enter, which is a large part of it, how to get there, having a winning attitude, and going to the next one. He liked to ruin me the first full year that I went, when we went to 180-some rodeos, and I was kind of ready to quit after that. But the best thing that ever happened was the 100 rodeo world. In the mid-'80s, I was fortunate enough to be drafted by the Wrangler team, and being a nice guy that I am, I thought I'd call them up this year and ask them, since I was an endorsee, if they had anything that they'd like me to wear here apparel-wise. And Greg Tuza said that no, anything was fine, just make sure you wear clean underwear. And I can assure you, Greg, they were clean before I got up here. And I'd really like to thank my wife, Sherry, who spent many, many hours behind the wheel driving to the rodeos, giving moral support, knocking me down a few notches or two when I was feeling too good, and, supporting me when I wasn't doing good, telling me to get off my butt, and, so on and so forth. But I can remember times driving down the road, we'd be so tired, and that's one of the hardest things that kills you in the rodeo business, is all the miles that you drive. It's just, if you could just be there and compete, that would be great, but the miles of getting there, you're kind of like a truck driver. And I was fortunate enough to be able to drive with my best friend, my wife, and it was great to see the country, go through all the experiences with her, and I really appreciate that a lot. And as the years came on, I had two fine children, Katie and Shannon, who were my best supporters. They were sure uplifting all the time. Anytime, even if I went out there and got mucked out, run over and stomped, and my shirt tore off, they were right there saying, "Nice run, Dad, nice run." And you kind of had to giggle about it and say, "Yeah, it just made you smile." So I really appreciate that. Another guy that helped me a lot was Alfalfa Feddersen, who I had a lot of confidence in. Every championship that I did win, he was there on the other side. There before you go in the arena, he was always pumping you, getting you ready to go. Sometimes you felt like turning over there and saying, "Shut up, Alf." But, he made you feel like you could tear a phone book in half before you got in the arena, and that was just outstanding. And I really appreciate the job he did for me all those years, and being able to ride his horse Catfish. He was a heck of a horse. I'd really like to thank all the people that came today. I know it was a long ways for everybody to come, for some, and it really means a lot to me that you were here, and it's just an honor to see you guys here, because a lot of you helped me a long ways down the road, and I sure appreciate that. And I'd just like to end it by saying that I might not be monetarily rich, but through the years, rodeo's opened a lot of doors, and I've seen a lot of things and experienced a lot of stuff. And all the friends that I've made, I consider myself the richest guy in the world. Thank you very much.
You did a great job. You really did. Congratulations.